This today, as you know, I think everybody's been following these. If you haven't made it to any, they are all recorded. They are on the tag websites. If you need access to that, let me know. Started off with positioning yourself, disc prospecting, and objective handling. But last week moved into the actual sales process itself, where I focused on pre-sales planning as well as that very first meeting. Today, we're talking about the assessment step of the sales cycle. Next week, I'll be talking about making recommendations. Follow the following week with how to close a deal. We'll take a break for the week of Thanksgiving, and Brian will be back talking about how to close a voice surveillance deal, which is a little bit different process than IT sales. And then we've got a Q&A going, which Dale, are we all going to be on that Q&A? Do you know, or is it just Ryan or somebody doing it?
I think we're all going to be on there that participated in doing the presentations.
Okay.
That's Q&A.
That's what it hit me on the last time. I'm like, who's doing that?
Cool. I just came up with that answer, by the way.
I kind of figured, well, you're the boss, so we'll go with it.
Yeah, you'd be the one to make up the answer, so.
Absolutely.
That's it.
But that sounds like the most reasonable.
Yeah. All right. Well, today I do have a shorter presentation, so we got time for talking through this if you guys like. Today we're talking about performing successful assessment. Before I do, I did want to review a few things from last week. This first one, this is something that I found has definitely helped me differentiate from my competition over the years is really to talk people. You heard the saying where you can't talk geek. You have to translate that technology. Well, this is kind of the next level up where you're talking to people, helping them understand how technology can better make them succeed. It's going past not talking geek and to the point where the majority of your conversation, you really want to be talking about the people, what it is that they need to succeed in life. And really what we're doing through this whole sales cycle, all the way up to the point where we get a proposal, is we understand what their needs are before we start trying to sell them, before we start trying to solve their problems. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the most compelling reasons is this process is designed to build a relationship, to help them start to visualize what it's like to be a customer, what it looks like. Grass is greener on the other side, but they can't see how they get there. But what we'll tend to do if we start trying to solve their problems too quick, we start trying to solve problems that they just don't really care about. We really want to take the time to understand what it is that they see of value in what we can provide to them. And while we may be providing all of that, where we want to focus and what's really going to close that deal is on just that 20%, those couple of items that they really see as important to them. And if we start to focus on everything first, we might end up spending too much time on stuff that's unimportant to them. They lose interest. We don't ever bring them on as a customer. If you're doing, this is so critical. I'm sure everybody's on here has gone to a technology demo before, right? You've done a web share or technology. I went through a great one the other day with a learning management system where before he showed me anything, we spent 20 minutes talking about what I was looking for in a solution, and he tailored the demo to that. That was the first technology demo I've ever been to that happened. I was blown away. I'm like, well, thank God I don't have to see the 3,000 things I don't care about on your platform. And that's really what we're talking about here. Understand their needs so that when you do start to sell them, you're selling them what they need and what they want. Another recap of this engagement life cycle. And now this one really starts to be important here because the first two meetings the first two phases are you getting ready for the meeting. You're flying on that first meeting solo. Now, once we're in this assess and recommend, you're bringing in a sales engineer. The reason why you're bringing in a sales engineer is twofold. One, because you as a salesperson, you're responsible for creating that relationship, nurturing the relationship, driving that full sales cycle. The technician is there to figure out the technical aspects of their environment, understand everything they need to know to put together a proper proposal. And if you're trying to do that as well, well, you're missing on that relationship component. It's just definitely not something you want to see. And Dale and I just, with a member of ours, they brought on a salesperson and she determined she was going to combine the steps and she wasn't going to bring a sales engineer on place. And she went her way. And how long did she last, Dale? It wasn't very long. Not long at all.
No, not long at all. You know, it's funny when she went through that, Lane and I just looked at each other and shook our heads and said, this is crazy. But, you know, she came from another MSP. They didn't hire her through the tag hiring process. And we just said, hey, you know, she won't last 3 months, and she didn't.
I don't think she lasted 60 days, but her plan was, I know enough about the technology, just do it all myself. And we said, okay, you can go for that, but it's not what we recommend. Even if you are very technical, it's important to bring another person out there and have them focus on the technology. You focus on the relationship and that side of the conversation. Part of the assessment also is looking at that customer's technology stack and understanding where they fit. That's why this slide is so important, because what you'll see as I'll talk here in about 15, 20 minutes is the assessment really does start to set up the stage for not only that first project work, but also your roadmap, IT roadmap down the road. So it's another example of how you're going to help them visualize what it looks like to be working with you. Just to recap, these are what we went through last week throughout the day. This is, as you guys know, this is the third time I've done this today. So we're going to pause here and just give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions, see if there's any comments you want to make from last time we spoke and you saw this, any insight or any questions you want to go over right now. Take a moment to give you that opportunity. So nobody's got anything for me?
None here.
No, I think that all looks good.
All right, cool. So today we're obviously talking about the assessment piece. Next week, the recommendation, and then obviously propose and close. What are the goals of this assessment? First off is gather enough information to make an informed recommendation. This doesn't mean just running out there, running a rapid fire tool, and then coming back into the office. You need to do a whole lot more than that. We're going to talk about that today. It really is important. I mean, if you're going out to a small business customer, they've got 25, 30 employees, one location, and you don't gather everything you need in that visit, and you have to go back and you keep coming back and asking questions, what does that do to your credibility? It just kills you. I have so many folks that I'm working with that'll send me an assessment and say, hey, I need some help with this opportunity. And the first thing I see, and you'll see it when you start to run rapid fire scans, is there's 45 computers in the Active Directory. 20 of them haven't logged in the past 30 days. So my very first question is, well, how many computers do they actually have? And you know what answer I get from people so often? I don't know. Well, it's somewhere between 20 and 45 because there's 45 here, but 20 haven't logged in the last 30 days. So the next question is, well, how many employees do they have? I don't know. We didn't ask that question. Well, how do you not ask that question? It's not about, you can't, we've got these great tools. They're great assets, but you can't rely 100% on it. If you're in that situation where you go out and you actually know you're not going to be able to get enough information, that's fine. But set the expectation with the customer that, hey, we came out here, we had a goal, we didn't accomplish that goal. We're going to be back in touch a few more times so that we can gather all the information we need. I've seen it happen too many times where folks won't quite gather the information. They don't necessarily want to ask for more. So they get to that recommendation or proposal space and they've got the wrong numbers, the wrong head count, wrong server count or something. And that's a surefire way to lose an opportunity. Number two goal, and equally as important, is we're going to continue to create that chasm between the customer, what the customer has right now, that current solution. Hey, I'm happy with my IT guy, or I love my current MSP, and what it looks like to be in a relationship, a partnership with you. We want to continue to create that chasm between what they have and what you can bring them. And we're going to do that by continuing to build that relationship. And this is really where the salesperson is going to be focusing. Continue to build that relationship, continuing to uncover challenges that they're having, and talking to influencers within the organization, and really building that case against what their current solution is. All right, so here's the steps we're going to take. And I'll go through these all here in a moment. We're going to send out a press release, a white paper. We're going to do this before the meetings. After you've left that first meeting and before you show up again, we're going to stick that in there. During the session, like I just said, we're going to be running a couple assessments. We're going to meet with the executive team members, ideally. After the meeting, we've got our project overview call that we do for voice sales. There was a lot of discussion today on why wouldn't we do it for IT sales, and I think we could as well get working on that for you guys to help out there. And then also we're going to do that connectivity and bill assessment as part of this phase. Now you can do it before the meeting or after the meeting, but it needs to be done before you move on to your recommendations phase for sure. So what are we doing before the meeting? The only thing we've got listed here is send a press release. And we had a really great discussion about in my last call about what you should be doing. And really what we're doing here is it's one other touch point. It's another differentiator. And ideally it's on something you talked about. If you talked a lot about virtual CIO services or remote workforce or whatever that might be, this is a great opportunity to say, hey, thanks for our meeting yesterday. Excited to be talking with you next Thursday. Wanted to share this white paper, this press release, or whatever it might be. You can see what we've done on this topic of remote workforce, or here you can talk cybersecurity. And it's just another touch point, another way to help shore up your argument for why you're the right partner. I do want to put a plug in here for TAG as well. Not for TAG, but for us to help you. If you don't have these type of assets, if you don't have these press releases already in place, we've got a plethora of them over the years that we can take and brand for you. Janet can work with you on that, and you can add that into your toolbox. We actually encourage folks to put them up on their website. You can backdate for a few years back. So if you're just getting into the IT space, hey, put a few years worth up there. That way it helps to tell that story that you've been in the technology business for a long time. Because regardless of what type of technology you've been selling, you have been in the IT space for a very long time now. Anybody on the call right now, do you have, no matter what, when you leave that meeting, do you have a follow-up touch point between those two meetings right now? Is that part of your sales process right now or no?
Yep. I usually, with my meetings, almost send almost a little recap and then what the next steps are.
Nice.
Yep. And that's what we're talking about here, right? Recaps, next step, add a little bit extra fodder to add some credibility to it. And the reason why we're bringing it up here is we are talking sales process and all those steps you want to make sure you do. So this is one of those steps that's critical in the success of your sales cycle. I already talked about the TAG team. It's 2 people, not 1 person, that are heading out for that assessment. Very important. You have a sales engineer that's going to come out with you, whatever you guys call them. I've always referred to that role as sales engineer. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what their title is. A lot of time they're a senior engineer, level 3 or whatever that might be, but they're performing that sales engineering function for you. Equally important is to not bring them until this meeting. We talked about that last week. When you're out there and you're qualifying that prospect and you're that first meeting, you should not have an extra person sitting there next to you. You're not talking technology. You don't need to lean on anybody to talk tech. You're talking business. And basically, this is where you're going to start talking technology with the customer. What is the sales engineer going to be doing? First off, they're going to install and configure that assessment software. We'll hit on that. They're going to survey the entire IT environment, and they're also going to do a technology stack review, and we'll go through each of those right now. And I don't think, is everybody on here a salesperson? Yeah? Okay. Yep. So are you guys do you know what type of tool you guys are using for assessments right now?
I do not.
Anyone? No? All right. Nobody else? Okay. Well, I would say the very vast majority of our members are using a tool called Network Detective. It's from a company called Rapid Fire Tools. If you're a Continuum partner, it comes for free. If not, it's not very expensive. I will talk with your technical counterparts and see what you guys are using and make sure they've got a tool in place. Because we don't have any technical folks on, I won't spend too much time on this. Just to summarize this slide here, and the reason why I'm showing it to you is it's got a standard assessment engine, and there's also a separate security assessment module that costs extra, that we strongly recommend you leverage the security assessment module as well when you're doing this. I'll circle around with Tom. I'm not sure Melanie and James who the right people are with you guys, but I'll double check and make sure that they're using some sort of tool and understand what they're doing. But basically, this tool here is going to discover their customer network domain, and it's going to find out everything that's not configured properly in that domain. It's going to look at user accounts that are active but haven't been logged into in the past 60 days, which means basically they're former employees, but they still have an account. It's going to look at password policies, account management policies, disk-based usage on servers, all sorts of stuff within that environment that are going to help your technical people get a clearer picture of them, what their environment looks like. But it's also helping identify floppiness with the current MSP. Biggest thing we see is, so if they've got a bunch of user accounts that haven't been disabled, that are still active, that are terminated employees, that previous IT isn't doing their job. They don't have an employee termination process that says, hey, as soon as an employee's gone, we got to make sure they can't access the network anymore. So that's just a real simple one. We see that all the time. Every single scan. Dale, I bet you've never done a scan that you didn't see that.
Correct.
All the time you're going to see that. So just little bits and bytes of stuff that you can chip away at that competitor on why they're not really doing as good a job as that customer or prospect thinks they're doing. A few things that are important before you can run any of these tools, whether you're using this one or another one, is first off, the customer needs to have a Windows domain. If it's a 5-seat opportunity, they don't have a domain, tell your techs don't bother with running a scanning tool. They can get the inventory themselves, and it's faster and more accurate. The next requirement is you're going to have domain administrator access to get the access this tool. As you'll recall from actually Dale's objection handling, this is one of the most common objections we get. When we ask to get the assessment, we let them know, hey, in that first meeting, we let them know, hey, we'd love to perform this assessment. We're going to need to have this level of access. Is that something you have? A lot of times they'll say, sorry, geez, no, I don't have it. I'm hesitant to ask my current provider for it because then they'll know something's up. Well, that's actually, I know Dale talked through it in the objection handling. That's actually two opportunities for you. First opportunity is to point out to them that they should have their access to their administrative password. That's their equipment, that's their domain, that's their data. They own it. At no point should they feel like at hostage to their IT department, their outsourcer. It's an opportunity to point that out. Hey, you guys should have access, and this is what we do for our customers, and this is the process we follow. Second thing, help them out with how to get over that objection. The most common way to do it is just to tell them that, hey, let the other MSP know you're going through an audit, your insurance company is auditing you, and part of the audit requirements are that you list all of your assets, and you also list that you have full control of all your data, and that requires you to have the administrative password. Any questions before I keep rolling? No? All right. James said, thanks for closing your window a little bit because I kept seeing those people back there walking around. Site survey. So that tool is great. It doesn't give you everything you need. It doesn't give you your warranty information. This is something very important that you want to understand. Yep.
I just want to maybe point out something that you were just talking about, telling the current MSP that your insurance company needs that information. I would maybe change insurance to assurance company.
Okay.
Get it? The play on words? All right.
Yep. All right. Dale, what's your take on that? What do you got? What do you usually use?
Well, I usually tell them that you're contemplating having an audit done by your bank or your accounting firm.
Mm.
And that usually takes care. And then I throw in and I say, I think, it's because best practices says if you have a bank or an accounting firm, best practices say that I think it's question number 3 on their list. Do you have access to your domain controller passwords? So, banks do audits. I mean, I know we get audited because, bank we do, and our accounting department will do an audit for us. And,
Mm-hmm.
All right. So thanks, James.
Sure.
So site survey, what else are they looking for? Warranty information, hardware configurations. Part of that, looking at a technology stack, we want to look at standards. And so, for example, standards on a server, you want to have certain level, you want to have redundant power supplies or redundant network cards or whatever that might be. A lot of that information you're not going to be able to pull from these tools. So it's literally a visual inspection. IT policies. Another piece is, Mr. Prospect, can you please let me know what type of IT policies you have in place right now? We have a set that we like to see for our customers, but we want to understand what you have. What are you doing there? You know they don't have any. You know that other MSP doesn't have any policies in place for them. And so you're creating that chasm. You're getting them to say, oh, yeah, we don't actually have any IT policies in place right now. Our MSP just takes care of everything for us. And you can then use that opportunity to say, well, geez, what's the new hire process look like? What does it look like when somebody gets terminated? What's a new PC process look like? And they won't have those answers. So you're starting to continue to build that chasm between the two.
Yeah. Another way of saying that too is, can you show me the policies that your existing IT provider has provided to you, such as, and then you list what Lane just listed, and they come, well, they haven't done it. And you look at them with a real curious look and say, well, okay, that's real basic. I mean, somebody should be supplying you with these basic IT policies. And like Lane says, keep that chasm at the end of the conversation at the time of sale. That chasm is so wide, they don't have that trust in their existing IT provider.
Just a blurb here to tell you to take pictures. This is not you again. This is a sales engineer taking pictures. I got a kick out of this one. And I think the reality is we've all seen a wiring closet that looks like this. But you should be taking pictures of the server room, the rack, the printers, a few workstations, just so you can kind of understand the environment. If they have any access points, take pictures of those so you know where they are in the building. This is all useful information that will tie into your onboarding. But also, if you need to show a picture that looks like this when you're talking about your recommendations, it's a good idea to have the picture already taken. We're also going to do technology stack review with them. What this is, you as an MSP are somewhat like an enterprise IT department. You have a centralized IT team, and you've got multiple locations that you're supporting. When you go into an enterprise environment, and I know some of you guys sell into the enterprise, what is that enterprise IT department doing with all their locations? Are they selling this location Dell and this location HP and this location IBM? No. Are they doing different backups for everybody? No. They're doing the same thing. Everybody's got the same kind of laptops, same kind of printers, same kind of desktops, same servers, same firewalls, etc. Why are they doing that? Because there's no possible way they have the technical skill set within that small IT department to properly support everything on the planet. You as an MSP, it's the same thing. You need to be able to train your technicians to focus on the right technologies that are the right fit for your customers. One of the first things I do when I start working with a new member is I work with the IT and operations team to build out the technology stack on what we want our perfect customer to look like. And that's really what you want to do in the sales cycle. You want to start to understand, how does this prospect align with being our perfect customer? They're going to have red, yellow, or green, and I'll explain what these are here. You're going to look at every piece of technology, and here's a checklist. So let's say we're going to look at their firewall. All right, great. They got a firewall. Perfect. Well, now let's look at what we require of a firewall. Well, we want to see a firewall that's less than 5 years old, it's business grade, it's under warranty, and it's got a security package installed on it. Perfect. You go out to that customer, they've got a Linksys they bought at Best Buy. Does that meet those requirements? Nope. That's a red. That's a fail. What does that mean? You've got to replace it. Now, alternatively, though, if you go out there, let's say they've got a Cisco Meraki. Anybody familiar with those? Yeah, James is. Yeah. Well, anyway, if you were, a Cisco Meraki, the only way they run is if they're under warranty, under subscription. If they're not fully under subscription, they don't actually function. So if a customer's got a Cisco Meraki out there, you know that it meets all those requirements, basically. That would be, all right, great. The technology meets our requirement, but it's not a WatchGuard. And we make sure that our techs are cutting edge on WatchGuards. We think WatchGuards are the right fit for our market, and we have the most expertise on that. That's really our perfect situation. So in that scenario, you let them know, hey, look, you got a Cisco Meraki, that's great. It's a good product. We like them. However, we're going to throw this up on the roadmap. And a year and a half from now, when it's time to replace that, we're going to go ahead and put in a WatchGuard. Here's the reason why we're going to do that. Talked about helping that member visualize. This is another opportunity where you're helping them visualize what it looks like to work with you. You're not just talking about the fact that they need to replace something. You're also telling them, hey, look, this is good. You meet our requirements, but you're also looking down a year and a half down the road and saying, hey, a year and a half down the road, just so you know, we're going to be back at the table talking about your firewall because it's going to need to be replaced at that point. You're helping them visualize what that looks like. And also you're helping your sales cycle a year and a half down the road because you're putting it on that roadmap for them already. And by the way, you're also talking about an IT roadmap at this point, which the competitors probably hasn't done a good job of building out their IT roadmap. This is just an example. I have a spreadsheet built out that we can get to your sales engineers. I know for Adam and Jake, Tom actually just went through this whole exercise with me, and he's got this built out now. So he's on board with this. He understands this process well. So, like I just said, what needs to be replaced, that's going to go on in your tech stack adoption project, whatever you guys call that. Probably not tech stack adoption, but that's what I'm using for training purposes. And then anything that's in the yellow goes on the roadmap, and everything on the green, hey, it's a good opportunity to let them know they're doing something right. Everybody that's going through the transition, all they hear is, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong. It's also good to say what's right. And especially if it's something that they've done with their previous competitor, because they feel good about that relationship. So you don't want to completely tear them apart. You want to let them know that, hey, you've made some good decisions. This is good. What's the sales exec doing? Well, as I mentioned, your primary role is here to continue to build the relationship, continue to move this forward. Let's just kind of walk through that typical scenario where you're heading out for an assessment with your sales engineer. You head out there, you meet at the receptionist, you say, hey, we're here to meet up with Michael. We're doing an IT assessment. Great. Michael comes out. You introduce Michael to Luke, your sales engineer. The first questions from Michael's mouth is, all right, what do we need to do to get started? Luke says, well, hey, I need to get to your server so I can run the assessment software. You head over there, you kind of get a little quick tour of the place. You get over there and you're either standing in front of a wiring closet, or if you're lucky, you're actually in a small little server room or something that's got the AC turned up too loud and too noisy to actually have a conversation. And you get Luke set up, and then what do you do at that point? Do you hang out with Luke? Do you talk about whatever you're looking at in the rack? Or do you get the heck out of there and start talking to more people? Which one do you think? It's an easy slam dunk. Come on, Adam.
Get out of there.
Get out of there. That's
Hell
right.
out of there. I would be running.
Exactly, right? Sure, have a little bit of small talk. But then what you say is, hey, if you recall, when we last met, I asked you about some of your executive team members. I'd really like to meet with them now. So here you are talking to Michael. Let's go talk to your team. Well, first off, we're going to talk to Dwight. We heard Dwight's your number one salesperson. You're going to head over and talk to Dwight. Hey, Dwight, have you lost any sales because your email wasn't working, or because technology slowed you down, or how can technology help you close more business faster, bigger deals, whatever it might be? Dwight over there, he's angry because, well, Michael never asked him about IT because Michael doesn't care about IT because IT is a cost center. But Dwight really loves IT, and he's passionate about it, and he's very frustrated that the company's holding him back because IT isn't really enabling him. Now he's got his platform, and he's talking. He's telling you what's going on. The best part about it is, what are you doing? You're getting more pain points, more challenges, but you're also giving Michael a different perspective on how IT's functioning in their organization. So you keep going. You talk to Daryl. Hey, Daryl, I know you run the warehouse out there. What type of inventory management software are you guys running? Oh, okay, great. Is it efficient, or do you having problems? How old is it? How's the support from that vendor? Again, continuing to raise questions, and you're giving key players in that company an opportunity to talk about IT and how it affects them in their business. And you're doing it in front of the boss. So the boss is seeing this. You're slowly changing that boss's perception on IT in their world. Michael thinks it's a cost center. Dwight's frustrated that it's a cost center because he knows that if he had the right sales tools in place, he could close more business. And Daryl's frustrated too because he has to have 4 employees when if he got that new inventory management software, he'd only need 2. And you keep rolling. Talk to the HR. Tell me about your IT processes. When was the last time you hired an employee? Oh, we hired someone last Tuesday. Okay, great. On Tuesday, did they have their PC set up for them? Did they have their laptop ready to go? Was their user account ready? Did the current IT provider give them a call and walk them through how to get rolling, or send them a training video, or even stop by and show them the way around? The answer to all those questions are probably no, no, no. And in fact, he's very frustrated because it took 3 days to get their phone working because they had to switch it from the previous salesperson's phone, and they forgot to do that until they showed up and the phone didn't work. You hear that all the time. Scenarios like that, every single customer prospect you talk to that HR person, they're going to have frustrations with IT. I guarantee it. Talk to the receptionist. Pam, what's going on? How can we make your life easier? Would it be great if you had internal paging, or if you didn't have to answer the phone all the time, if we had DIDs, so direct dial for folks, whatever that might be? Get her talking about what she's struggling with in IT. What are you doing here? You're moving it up to the people. You're showing that decision maker that you care about their people and how their people and his employees and his most valuable asset are leveraging IT, and you're there to help them figure out how IT can make them more successful. That's good. Once you're done with the meeting, you've talked to all the influencers. Luke's got everything he has. One thing before you leave: if Luke doesn't feel like he has everything he has, let them know. We're probably going to have to come back and get some more information. If Luke is 100% confident, okay, great. You can go ahead and leave that meeting and say, we're going to come back to you. We've got a few more things we're going to do. We're not ready to propose, but we're going to be talking to you here shortly. Now, a couple of things that you're going to do after that is, very first thing, you're going to perform that bill analysis. If you're selling voice to them, if it turns out to be a voice opportunity. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this after the assessment. You can do it before the assessment. Doesn't matter when, but you certainly have to have it done before the next task, which is the project overview call, which, Dale, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that you're on the call with me, like I did with Brian earlier, and ask you to explain a little bit about how you guys go about doing a project overview call and the importance of it. I don't know that we have any members on here, but I can tell you the last 2 calls we had members on that hands down were raving about the importance of doing this when you're trying to close a voice opportunity. So
Yeah, so with the project overview is that this is where you do a summation. This is where you create the ability for that you're not selling, but it's a consultative sales approach. And I make the call and I say, hey, Joe, the hardest things we do in life is communicate effectively with each other. No one really teaches us how to do that. And sometimes you hear what you want to hear and sometimes you don't hear what you don't want to hear. So what I did was I went ahead and I put together what I perceive we discussed today at our call. This is a draft. If you can add to it, delete to it, please give me that input. Once I have that, I'll then get it into the engineering department to move forward. And as we go through this transition, as you educate me about your business and I educate you about technology, this may change. Just go ahead and initial and date it, get it back to me. And when we're all finished with the transaction, we'll have the latest overview of what we're trying to accomplish. Does that make sense to you? Now, what this really does is that they don't feel like they're being sold. They feel like they're part of the solution. In my experience, I've never had anybody who's ever changed the project overview that didn't buy from me. Sometimes I find that, I have a hard time getting it back. And those are the ones that I have the hardest time closing. So it's a real good indicator of where you're at with the customer. The other thing that it does, when you look at the sales process, especially for phones, they're going to call in 3 other companies. Well, it allows you to be proactive with your prospecting, be the first in and be the last to propose. The other thing is sets the bar where your competition does not do this. It's just a step where someone says, wow, here's a company that is trying to refresh and trying to make sure they heard what I was saying and that I heard what they were saying. Here's what you do. As you get, especially on the voice side, this becomes absolutely critical. Did that help, Lane?
Yep.
Any comments on that or any questions, any concerns? Because we have the ability that if you're going to go out on a voice call and you want to help putting together a project overview, just tell me what the product is or tell us what the product is, and we'll give you the 6 or 7 business applications that should be in that project overview. And you'll start learning to talk about solutions rather than benefits or features. You don't want to talk features. You want to talk solutions, having the ability to record so that we can, in fact, allow our sales department to be more effective in their communication to our customers and prospecting. All right. Boom. You talked about that with you on the voice call. We will help you. You have an opportunity for a voice call. In the voice call sales process is very, very similar to what we do with MSP, somewhat modifications, because we're talking about a phone system versus IT. But we have that capacity to work with you on that.
All right, cool. Thanks, Dale.
Mm-hmm.
And Dale didn't. One of the things you're seeing here is a sales process that we're encompassing IT and voice and everything. And so this is one of the nuances that you see when you're doing a voice opportunity. You still want to do that full assessment, still network analysis, all of that, because 1, it helps I uncover other information, but also 2, you don't want to sell a voice phone system on a network that's a disaster, because then your voice is going to suck. So
you're combining these.
Yeah.
You're combining the data that you receive from the assessment on the IT, managed services side. And then, of course, you're going after the voice as well. And then you're just combining these efforts in a project overview and saying, here's our findings.
Here's what we tell everybody. Pick one or the other that you're going to sell first, because if they don't buy your phone system, they sure the heck ain't going to buy your IT. If they don't buy the IT, they're not going to buy. So keep it real simple. Make the decision of what you have, all kinds of opportunities, but sell something first, get it under contract, and then start proceeding to the other processes. If you go in there and say, here's your IT, here's your voice, here's your cameras, you're just putting up so many roadblocks in front of you.
Yeah, and at some point during that first meeting and the assessment, you're going to start to identify really where you need to focus on. And that goes back to that slide quite a ways ago. Whew. Hey, there we go. Goes back to this slide. You don't start selling until you know what their pain points are. And it might be that you go out there thinking it's an IT opportunity, but really quickly realize it's a voice opportunity. And that's
Yeah.
where you want to position and shift your strategy. That was actually my second to last slide. Last week, as you recall, when we went over the overview, I personally think it's really important to have this exit criteria. You know, how do we get to that next step? Obviously, you've completed all the assessment pieces. You've got all your information. If you're sitting there and you don't know if they have 22 or 27 employees, do not give them a proposal until you've asked them the question, hey, how many employees do you actually have? Right? We missed something. We need to know. So you're not moving past this until you truly have everything you need to know for that assessment. Because
Yeah,
once you put something in front of them, if the information you're putting in front of them is wrong, you've just lost all your credibility. Right? There went that opportunity.
And the pandemic has created a real opportunity for a number one question is, how many remote workforce do you have? And then get into that discussion and say, well, you know, we're being told 30% of those people will never come back. And the ones that do come back will still work 1 to 2 days a week out of their home. How are they set up? Boy, that whole nother expansion. Now you're talking an enterprise opportunity versus a single site opportunity, aren't you? And I think that's one of the reasons that so many tag members are doing so well during this pandemic. You know, we got pretty good percentage that are having the best years they've ever had. Everyone's had increased business, you know, on the IT side and even the phone sides. Pandemic has created opportunities for us, but you got to ask the questions. That's a number one question. How many remote work people do you have?
What else have you done? You've
Any questions?
expanded the relationship. You've got identified additional challenges. And at this point, you really are starting to hone in on what you're going to recommend. You've got voice bills analyzed, and then also you've done that project overviews. All that stuff's done. You're ready for the next step, which we're going to talk about next week.
Well, appreciate it, guys.
Always a
All right,
pleasure.
everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks a lot for the time, and have a great week.
You too,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Thanks, Brian. Take it easy, everybody.